Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. One thing that has always bothered us when we hear these cryptid reports is how these cryptids can be seen in populated areas. And that's something we'd like to delve into a little bit deeper. So let's talk about it and let's get weird. So when we talk about cryptids in populated areas, people are seeing them in big cities, they're seeing them in small towns, they're seeing them in their backyards, and it always raises the question, how can you have a breeding population of Bigfoot in this area, or of Dogman, or Mothman, or whatever, without people seeing it every single day? And, we've talked about Mothman in Chicago, and, city of millions of people, how come people aren't seeing Mothman every time they step out of their house? It seems like there are a couple of ways that we could explain this without, bending our ability to be logical about it, I think would be the best way of saying it. Because there's a lot of suspension of disbelief you have to have with some of these stories if you can't find a logical explanation for it. But we have a few ideas.
Yeah, and for us personally, the most logical one, well, the one that we've been pushing the most probably is the river system, essentially. Migration versus population. The idea of this is basically a cryptid, which in many podcasts we've discussed, Bigfoot, maybe Dogman, literally any cryptid as for this podcast. They could travel via a river system, which are often surrounded by forest, like thin pieces of forest, where they can theoretically be sort of hidden from the population if they travel correctly and are, very stealthy, which is why, I mentioned the on-foot cryptids. It can really be any, but it would be probably ideal if they were on foot. Yeah.
Now, what makes that believable is that the idea here is that no cryptid would actually be stupid enough to live in Chicago or Elk Grove Village or Schaumburg or anywhere like that. But they may pass through those areas as part of their normal migration, and that would explain why one or two lucky or unlucky people get to see them as opposed to half the population of the city.
Yeah, it certainly increases the rarity of witnessing these creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a real possibility, and it also explains why you don't see things in these populated areas like nests. If you ever watch the Bigfoot shows, always in Washington, you'll see the big areas where it looks like Bigfoot is bedded down, and then of course the structures that they make and everything like that. You don't see much of that in Illinois or near really, really populated areas. And again, if they're just passing through, they certainly wouldn't stop to, make themselves at home.
Yeah, the only time that we found sort of a nest was, I think around Bray Road, if I'm not mistaken, where we found that random big nest.
Right. Yeah, that was
in clear, almost fields.
Exactly. That was that almost kind of proves the point, because it wasn't actually in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. It was an unincorporated forest near Elkhorn where we were walking along the river. So I think if we'd found it closer to Elkhorn, it probably would have proved that maybe this isn't such a good theory. But the fact that it was out in the middle of nowhere like that, it still kind of supports what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And portals are another way that these things could travel around. Maybe they don't go by the rivers and the woods. Maybe they actually have portals, self-generated ones, where they could literally put out their hand or something and create a portal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Portals would certainly allow them to not be seen, and it would allow them to be seen and then just take a step backward and disappear without a trace.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of stories where footprints will suddenly end. A lot of things won't fully connect with their travel patterns. Portals would absolutely make sense to kind of fill that gap.
Yeah. And certainly in the the Dogman stories, we hear a lot about the mist and how they just kind of step into the mist and disappear. And I know, our friend Henry talked about that a little bit too, and how these portals can just kind of pop up anywhere, and not just the cryptids, but people can disappear into them without a trace.
Yeah. And then there could be fixed portals. Maybe there's portals that we just can't see. Mm-hmm. Could be in trees, could be in walls. Or I know there's some reports of people seeing Dogman in their house somehow. But if those are true, maybe there were not self-generated, but fixed portals in their house, like a mirror or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we've certainly heard stories like that. And, there was that fountain at the Botanic Garden, which may or may not be a portal.
Yeah, true.
My question about the fixed portals is, though, how do you activate them? Because clearly they're not always portals, or people would be stepping through them every day.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a special sound you have to make, or if it recognizes certain beings as having permission to pass through them, or if there's, you have to touch a secret hidden spot on the tree. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe like once every 100 years or something, they pop up in that location.
Right. Yeah. That's something we'll have to delve into a little deeper sometime.
Yeah.
So another possibility for these cryptids that like to hang out in populated areas, maybe they're not visible to everybody. You do get those reports sometimes of somebody who sees something and their friends are right with them and they're not seeing what they're seeing. And of course, it's easy to dismiss those as, oh, that's because this person is crazy. But what if they're not? What if, say, a psychic who has some deeper connection with the universe than the average person is able to not only see spirits, but they can also see Bigfoot and they can also see Dogman, but everyone else can't. That would explain a lot of sightings in populated areas and explain why nobody else is seeing them.
Yeah.
And, cryptids could be curious sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they see all those people and they're like, hey, what are they up to?
Yeah.
They just pop up.
Yeah.
Or move to that area.
Yeah. And they're able to move like they're invisible, so they can check people out without any danger to themselves, unless they happen across a psychic person. Or the other possibility, maybe it's not a psychic or somebody blessed with some special ability. Maybe it goes back to that thing that I've talked about many times on this podcast, the filter. Maybe it's somebody without that logic filter that we get kind of trained into having as we get older. The idea that, the minute we see something that doesn't fit our belief of how things should be, our mind immediately either dismisses it or tries to classify it as something logical. So like if you see a Dogman, rather than your brain saying, oh my God, that's a Dogman, instead it says it's just a shadow, or it's a bear, or it's a dog, and it files it away safely in that little folder of things that you know and understand, so that you don't short circuit your brain and break your filter with something that you've been taught to believe doesn't exist.
Yeah. For this, I like to bring up your example where you saw like something, maybe it was leaves, maybe it was the actual creature. Mm-hmm. It was in Elk Grove Village, right?
Yeah, Bussy Woods.
Yeah, Bussy Woods.
Yeah, that's true. When I saw it, there was clearly something there. And then the more I looked at it, the more I thought, oh no, that's just leaves. And then when we looked at the video later, there was nothing there at all. Very strange.
Yeah.
Oh, we knew it could have been a Dogman head or something.
It could have been. Yeah. But the other possibility, of course, is that the creatures could have real invisibility. Sometimes people describe almost like the Predator, that shimmering as the thing, moves from tree to tree or moves through the forest. So either technologically or biologically, maybe these things actually are invisible or able to be invisible when they choose to be.
Yeah, I just wonder how they get that technology, which would lead to government theories. Yay!
Or aliens.
Yeah.
Or government with aliens.
Yeah. But something that might be beyond aliens, something way more spiritual maybe, is shapeshifting. Now we've discussed many times before about skinwalkers and how they're possibly connected to many cryptids, Dogman, Bigfoot. It could maybe explain why they're seen in similar locations every once in a while. I mean, skinwalkers can transform into relatively everything or anything. Mm-hmm. Anything on Earth, at least, or anything. It could get skin or
some sort of biological material so they could get the pattern.
Yeah. So it can transform into animals or humans, which would lead to it blending in with its background, like in theory, I guess you could say. So if a human were to suddenly see a Bigfoot, well, a temporary Bigfoot that's really a skinwalker, and then it, walks past a couple trees and then suddenly disappears only to be a deer or, really oddly tall deer for some reason. I mean, that could very well be a reason why these creatures are getting away so fast.
Yeah. Or it could be Bigfoot that turns into like a fish or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't be able to see it at night. It would just be flopping around.
Yeah.
You just dive into the creek and disappear without a trace.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or if it could turn into a bird.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something if all these cryptids are actually the same being?
That would be crazy. I mean, I'd argue that there's so many sightings across America. It would be really crazy unless there's more than one skinwalker.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. But I mean the same type of being.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
Like, what if there is no Bigfoot, no Dogman, no Mothman? What if it's all the same type of creature and it just keeps changing shape depending on its needs?
That would be interesting. I just wonder how it got some type of sample from those species.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Just last night, you and I were watching the Alaskan mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it Alaskan
Alaska monsters?
monsters? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are on that now?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Oh,
are.
I used to watch it all the time.
They're basically like forming a trap, and like one person was saying we need to make this like a physical trap. Other person was saying no, we have to make this like a spiritual trap. And then eventually the technology guy decided to like combine the two. Let's put physical and spiritual into one trap.
Yeah,
And
because
so
the idea was that if you just built a physical trap, what happens if you trap it and it turns itself into a butterfly or something and takes off?
yeah, exactly. I found that part kind of cool.
Yeah, it was. It was an interesting approach to a difficult problem, but I think that would certainly be a viable way that these things could be appearing in populated areas and not getting caught, so to speak.
Awesome.
So, what do you guys think? Is there a preferred method that you think is more likely than the others, or do you think none of these things are valid, or all of these things are valid, or what?
All of them are really valid. It would just require more context, and yeah, it's really just context.
Yeah.
Any of these could be true. If you see a portal right in your face, and a Dogman is coming out of it, that would probably confirm that in your mind. Maybe not for other people, but for you at least, you've got an answer.
True.
Meanwhile, if you see a Dogman near a river, opinion may vary.
What do you think?
And I think the same thing. They could all be possible, really. Portals could exist. It could be self-generated. It could have to do with open-minded people. I don't know.
I like that you guys thought that, because that's kind of the same thing that I'm thinking, and it kind of reinforces our philosophy on the whole podcast. We are open to all of these possibilities. We have not witnessed enough to say this is how it is, but we are investigating everything, and we want to hear about everything and see as much as we can, and try to formulate an intelligent opinion on these things. But until we actually experience one of these things, all possibilities are open.
Right?
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, why don't you all share your possibilities with us? Tell us what you've seen, or what you think about these cryptids and how they're existing in these populated areas or close to populated areas. And if you live in a populated area and you've seen a cryptid, tell us about it. And tell us which one of these methods you think it was using to avoid getting caught by all your neighbors. So you're welcome to leave comments in the comments section or use our anonymous contact form. But in any case, we thank you for listening and thank you for subscribing.
One thing that I did want to mention, and I'm still recording, so it doesn't really matter, but when you guys were talking about Alaskan monster, it reminded me of a video I saw today. Apparently, mountain monsters, they're coming back. Not for season 9. Season 9 of Mountain Monsters might not be coming, because apparently the platform that they were on, I think Paramount Plus or something, was bought out by Warner Brothers. I can't remember.
I think one of them left too.
Yeah, it was the shorter guy with the white beard. What's his name? It's been so long.
Was it Jeff?
It was Jeff. That's
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was such a nice guy though, it seemed. But yeah, Jeff left. That explains why there are only 3 people in that video. But they may go to YouTube. They may go to some random platform. But they're doing the Around the Fire thing at some point as well. You guys know that series?
I saw a couple bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, it's just basically reflecting on their episodes. So they're gonna do that and something else around Mountain Monsters, but probably not the same thing. So I'm gonna stay on track with that and see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that they're still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know who COVID got.
Yeah.